While I was shooting this video, I honestly tried to narrate it as I shot. The first part of it didn't come out too good as far as the narration went. I was fighting off a sore throat, and while talking, I was chewing on a lozenge. To say it was annoying is an understatement, at least to me. I've overdubbed a lot of this since my narration stunk, and the lozenge made it even more unprofessional than it is. This video I'm doing is combining several different projects that I want to get done on my '99 GMC Sierra 1500 with the 4.8 liter V8. I've had a minor oil leak coming from the driver's side of the engine block that drips down to and off of the oil filter and surrounding area. This leak's been there since I bought the truck about 4 years ago. It drips a drop or two a day, so it's not a major problem. But I have some time now to work on the truck and decided to see if I can get it fixed. As I was researching what might be the cause of the leak or leaks, I came across several different possibilities. This type of leak coming down the block and dripping off the oil filter is pretty common on this truck. What isn't as common is the cause. I know from working on different vehicles over the years that a common cause that would produce a leak similar to mine is the valley pan cover gasket has failed. This is the valley pan cover right along in here where I'm showing with the light. Another common cause for this type of oil leak is failed valve cover gaskets. Looking at my valve covers, though, the gaskets don't appear to be leaking. I'm thinking more that the cause of this mess is a valley pan cover gasket leak. Another cause of a leak that I discovered while researching comes from the oil pressure sensor that's located right behind the intake manifold at the rear of the engine block. Where I'll be pointing to shortly is where the oil pressure sensor is located. As I said earlier, I think that there is a leak from the valley pan cover gasket. It may be hard for you to see, but the bolt that I just pointed to with my light is really damp with oil all around it. When you see some of the after cleaning shots that I took, you'll be able to tell just how dirty this whole area was. Right where I'm going to point to is one of the head bolts. This one isn't as bad as some with caked on dirt and oil, but they're all really dirty though. I had to keep telling myself that, man, this is an 18-year-old vehicle. I'm pretty sure that the intake manifold had never been off before, hence so much dirt and junk caked on underneath there. If you look at the intake ports on the heads, you can see that they are filthy. If you look at the area around each port, you can tell that the gasket wasn't sealing very well. It's interesting that with the gaskets not sealing that well, that the truck still ran pretty good. I never had any DTCs, and it ran smooth with good power. You know, I'm not making this video as a how-to on replacing your intake manifold gaskets. There's several good videos out there on YouTube that can show you step-by-step how to do yours if you need help. The main reason I'm doing this video is to talk mostly about the oil leaks and a little bit about the valley pan cover gasket and the knock sensors. The knock sensors are the things I point at with my light. I'm replacing them since I'm in there already, and I know that there are issues with them. You'll see shortly how destroyed mine were. Funny thing is, they were not giving off any DTCs. I'm also replacing the wiring harness for the knock sensors. One other thing I haven't mentioned yet are the coolant bypass pipes. You can see them sitting on top of the valley pan cover. To get the valley pan cover off, you have to remove those pipe connections at the front and the back of each head. I'll talk more about that shortly. Okay, I admit it. The throttle body is a bit dirty in this shot. Some of the dirt from the intake fell on it while I was pulling it off the motor. I did a video on cleaning the throttle body a while back, probably a couple of years ago. This one's a bit dirty again, but not too bad. I'll clean it up again before I put everything back together. While watching some other videos, I found an easy way to take the throttle body off of the intake manifold. This is a shot of the throttle body installed on the vehicle. As the shot zooms in, you'll see me point to the nut and then the stud. There are 3 of these on the throttle body, the one on the top and 2 others on each corner of the bottom part of the throttle body. This shot shows you what you need to get the stud out of the intake manifold. This is an E6 external Torx socket. It fits on the end of the stud so you can unscrew it from the intake manifold. If you take out the 3 studs, the throttle body just falls away from the intake manifold, and you don't have to mess with the coolant lines on the bottom of the throttle body. Okay, I'm going to stop filming and start cleaning. There's no reason to show you guys that. Okay, so after many hours, I'm figuring probably 10 to 12 hours of cleaning is what it took me. I've got it to the point where I think it's clean enough now to put it back together. I did the valve covers and new gaskets for it. You can see in there the blue gasket that goes between the head and the valve cover. Those are Felpro gaskets. They're really nice. Trying to remember, I'm pretty sure I bought those at Amazon. Most of the stuff that I bought to do on this, because I knew I was going to do it, I bought at Amazon. You get 5% cash back if you're an Amazon Prime member, and you also get quick shipping. I mean, on some of this stuff, it took me just a little over a day and a half to get it. So where I'm at right now, I took the valley pan off, and you'll see, you know, if you're watching the video, you saw what it looked like before I took everything apart. I had to soak those bolts in, I put them in some Berryman's B12 overnight, and man, they came out pretty good. But I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed on that valley pan, trying to get those little stains. Almost, they look sort of like a rust stain, but I don't think that's exactly what it is because it's aluminum. But I got all the grease on there and the dirt. I'm sure that this thing has never been opened before. It was just caked on, baked on, almost like a ceramic coating. It took me forever to get stuff off. I did it with mainly a toothbrush, some rags, and some Berryman's B12, and a lot of elbow grease. And my arm is killing me for doing that. So, anyways, I'm to the point now. You can see I put the new manifold gaskets on there. Those are the Felpro updated version. They're a lot thicker than the OEM that you can even buy nowadays. I've watched several videos on the internet, shows you how to do that, and this is the one that most of the ones recommend using. They're a lot less likely to leak, apparently. So those are in place. You just have to make sure that when you do it, if yours was as dirty as mine when you took it apart, make sure that those head bolts that they clip down over are completely clean. Otherwise, you'll have a pain in the neck getting those things to clip in properly. Yesterday, when I went to go, I hadn't cleaned the back as good as I should, and they were not in too good a shape as far as getting them into place. But once I cleaned them, they clipped down, and they're in there nice and secure now. There's a couple of other things that I thought I'd mention while working on this, or talking to you about it. Is you can see in the back there, zoom in a little bit, you have your oil pressure sensor, which is the tall thing right in the middle of the screen, and also your cam position sensor, which is the thing right next to it. I figured while I'm in here, for the cost of them, rather than trying to do it later on, like I said, I don't think anybody's ever been in this before. They've never done any type of work under there, considering how filthy dirty the whole thing was. I would think that be prudent to go ahead and change those things out. So I've got those. I'm going to replace those today. I'm going to clean up that area back there a little bit more. You can see that it's pretty dirty. So I'll clean all that stuff up. That's the last bit of cleaning I think I have to do. And also, I wanted to talk about it. If you looked in if you saw in the beginning, there's some coolant bypass pipes that go on the top of this valley pan, and to get this valley pan off, that thing has to come off. And there's 4 connection points. There's one in each corner, right near each corner of the valley pan at the front and the back of the heads. I'll show you ones in the front because they're easier to see. This is what they look like right here. You can see that right in the middle there. That's where the attachment points for the actual coolant bypass line is. You know, I might be able to get a picture of that one in the back. I don't know, it's hard to see. It's back there. Yeah, you can sort of see it in the back. And there's one over on that side too. You can sort of see it a little bit. Those ones are no fun to clean, but I think I got them pretty clean. Make sure you order those up if you're planning on doing your valley pan gasket, because most parts houses don't carry them. You have to order them. I got them shipped to me one day on Amazon. They actually had them. They're little things. They're little silver, like oval shape. One part's got a seal, like an O-ring on it, and the other part is for the screw to go into, or the bolt. I'll show you this. I got to change to a different shot. But anyways, make sure you order those up if you want to take that valley cover off. You don't want to use the old ones, because mine were all trashed when I took them out. Also, concerning the intake manifold, I'm sorry, the knock sensors. That's what I'm trying to say. I'll show you a picture of those two here in a second. But you can see right now I didn't do the new ones, but this is. There's a picture of them both in there. You'll see mine, you know, when I take it out. See if I can get that one in there. There's a picture of both of them in there. And I also put the new grommets on the bottom. What I found is, you know, you got to knock those on with a hammer when you put them on, and you also have to take them. I had to pry them off with a screwdriver. They were in there pretty tight. Okay, that was a bit confusing, even for me. Here's a picture of the valley pan cover gasket and the two grommets I'm talking about. The red arrows are pointing at the grommets. In the next shot, I found a picture of the bottom side of the valley pan cover. This is what the valley pan cover looks like underneath. If you look at the two green arrows, that is where you will find the grommets I talked about. The grommets seal around the two risers in the valley where the knock sensors mount. Man, I'll never make it as a live news guy. I tried to explain how I installed the valley cover over the knock sensor risers while I was shooting, but after listening to it, I confused myself, and I actually did the job. What I did was put the valley pan cover and the gasket in place. I then lined up the holes. I already had the two knock sensor grommets installed. I threaded all the valley pan cover bolts in their holes, and then I slowly went around tightening the bolts a little bit at a time. Doing it that way helped get the knock sensor grommets to slide over the risers in the valley. And okay, in this shot, you can see the two old knock sensors that I removed. The one on the left was in the front, and the one on the right was in the back. You can also see that the connector on the one on the left is broken. I tried to get it to release from its harness, but it wouldn't. I'm sure glad I bought a new harness. It broke also while I was removing it. You can also see one of the old coolant bypass pipe seals. The black ring is the O-ring that is formed into it. So, considering how trashed those knock sensors were, I'm surprised that they weren't throwing codes. When you install yours, you torque them down to 15 foot-pounds. So here's a picture of the coolant bypass pipe removed from the motor. The rubber hose attached to it goes to the right side of the throttle body. I left the hose on the bypass pipe because it came off the throttle body much easier since I had had it off recently. Here's a shot of one of the attachment points of the coolant bypass pipe. I searched in the Haynes manual and on the internet, but couldn't find a torque value for the bolts that hold it on. Many of the different bolts similar to these torque at 106 inch-pounds, so that's what I torqued them to. This is a shot of the intake manifold after I finished cleaning it. It was just as dirty as the valley cover and around the intake ports. I tried Berryman's and brake clean and carb cleaner, and none of them were doing a very good job. I had a can of seafoam in my cabinet and tried it. It did a great job of removing the caked on crud along with using a toothbrush and a plastic scraper. Only problem with the seafoam is that it has oil in it. If you use it, make sure to wipe it off really well. I used some brake clean after the seafoam and most of the oiliness was removed. As you may have noticed, I went ahead and removed the fuel rail and injectors. It made it a lot easier to clean the intake manifold. I went ahead and replaced the lower O-rings on the injectors because the old ones seemed to be a bit deformed, flat on one side. It also made it easier to clean up the fuel rails and the injectors. if your intake isn't that dirty, there really is no reason to remove the fuel rail and injectors, other than if you remove them, it makes it much easier getting the intake manifold off and on the heads. Okay, so I've cleaned up the back area there a little bit. I cleaned the area surrounding the oil pressure sensor and the camshaft position sensor. Scraped out the crud that was back there as much as I could, vacuumed it up, and then blew the rest of it off. I kept all my ports to the intake side of the heads covered so they wouldn't get crud in them. But it doesn't matter. You're going to get a little bit in there no matter what you do, especially if yours was as dirty as mine. I tried the best I could to keep it clean. But anyways, concerning this back here, I have one of the reasons I'm doing this job, like I mentioned earlier, is because I got an oil leak that comes down the driver's side of the engine and basically drips off the oil filter and around the block down in there. There's so many different things it could be. You know, I thought, you know, when I found out that the oil pressure sensor was back there, I thought that, you know, it could be that. It could be the valley pan gasket leaking, which I think was leaking. When I took the old oil pressure sensor out, if I would have known, I probably could have loosened it up with my fingers, no wrench whatsoever. I put my socket on there, the special one that I bought to get this off, because I didn't have a 1 16th inch deep socket, so I figured, what the heck, I'll just buy this tool. And I put it on there, and it barely cracked. I mean, it was just threaded in there just enough to keep it from wobbling, and that was it. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if that was leaking, in addition to the valley pan gasket that I'm pretty sure was leaking. The throttle position sensor, the thing that's right next to the oil pressure sensor, pretty much it was coated in gunk. I sprayed a bunch of brake clean and other stuff on there. I scraped as much off as I could before I pulled it out of there. And basically, once you get that bolt there that's on there off, you can see it right there. It lifts straight up. Mine was a little stuck in there. It took me about 4 or 5 minutes to pull it out of there, but it finally came. I mean, if you look at the new one that you get with it, it's, you know, there's nothing in there that holds it other than that bolt and that little bracket. So now that's all cleaned up, and I'm getting ready to put the coolant bypass hoses on, or pipes they call them, coolant bypass pipes. And I've got that set up. I got the new seals on there. You can see that's how they fit, just like that. I got them all on there. I put this one askew just so you can see that it's on there, but they're all 4 of them are on there right now, and they hold pretty well. When you slide them over that nipple, there's enough tension around it that it'll keep it from falling off. So if you're going to do it, this is probably the preferred way to do it, rather than try to line them up over the holes flat and then get these things to go in there. Anyways, that's the way I'm going to do it. So I'm getting ready to do that right now, and if any issues present themselves while I'm doing it, I'll let you know on this later on when I shoot some more footage. As you can see, the coolant bypass pipes are installed. They went on with no problem. I also installed the new wiring harness for the NOx sensors. The rubber grommets were very tight fitting. I used a hammer to tap them into the holes since my old crippled fingers couldn't provide enough force. Regarding the TSB about the NOx sensors, GM recommends running a bead of RTV around each grommet, leaving a small open area at the rear like it shows in the video. I used ultra black, high temperature RTV that is good for use around sensors. So that pretty much sums up what I did. If you're somewhat mechanically inclined, you can do this job. I'm 62 years old, have some pretty serious arthritis in my hands. I have a bad back and neck, but I was still able to get it done. The vehicle runs really well now, so far anyways. A week after the repairs, I haven't found any oil leaks, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I got them fixed. Thanks for watching, and I hope that what I've shared in the video will help you with your vehicle.